Very good evening. It's Friday night, just after 7, and you are tuned to the Football Pitch live on YouTube. Apologies for the delay there. We were just having some technical issues. Actually, we were trying to do what VAR does. That's why it took us so bloody long to get the show started tonight. So there we are. You are tuned, as I say, the Football Pitch with myself, Cameron McDonald, and my usual regular co-host, Dennis Newell, and sidekick, Bob Smith. Tonight we'll be looking forward to the League Cup semi-finals this weekend, Rangers Celtic, St Mirren Motherwell. We'll also be taking a look at, and as I say, we were talking about it before we came on here, the VAR decision that probably nobody's talking about at the Falkirk Community Stadium. I was there in the stadium, so I'll be giving my opinions alongside, obviously, Dennis and Bob. But I think the place to start is going to be at Celtic Park, where we will be discussing the shock decision of Brendan Rodgers to chuck it during the week at Celtic. A lot of Rangers fans are saying they couldn't handle the new boss that's going to put pressure on them. First of all, good evening, Dennis. Good evening, Bob. How are we?
Hello, Gary. Looking forward to a weekend.
Good evening, Bob.
Hello, Dennis.
Good weekend ahead of football, but as I say, well, first place we will start, as I say, is obviously at Celtic Park. The new broom's in, or the old broom's back, or whatever you want to call it. Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney have taken charge, temporarily it seems, because Brendan Rodgers had a fallout with the Celtic board, and by golly did he have a fallout. It's been all over the press, all over the papers, statements from both sides. Dennis, what's your thoughts?
Deja vu. Done it before, and he's done it again. No matter what way you wrap it up, he's left the club because it wasn't going well for him. I don't think that, I've said it for a while, I thought that the board weren't handling things very, very well, and the fact of transfers and everything else that went with it that you could see. And one's blaming the other for saying I didn't have the money, or I wasn't picking the right players, or didn't have the authority to pick the right player. I think that's a load of garbage. There's a combination when clubs are working together, and Brendan Rodgers obviously had a good working relationship with the club, that when you sign players, and this goes to the other side of the town as well, you as a manager would have, I would imagine, I'm saying imagine, I'd almost guarantee you have the authority to say, we're not spending money on that player because I don't think he's good enough for this club. Now, if you do find that you're having to play players that you've been delegated to play, right? Is that including Ingles? You're telling me that they went out there and spent the money on the boy Ingles, what was it, £11 million?
11, yeah.
Yeah, and he's not liked him. You would imagine so, because he's not been playing him. So have the board went out and spent £11 million from people that know nothing about football and the actual playing side, and just say to Brendan Rodgers, there you go, there's a midfielder for you. I don't think that's the case. You would dig your heels in if there's anything about you and say, no, I'm not accepting that, because I'll not be playing him because he's not good enough for Celtic Football Club. Now, I don't think that happens. I think it's the fact that they've agreed, and one's trying to blame the other for the disasters they're having. And because they've got the strength at their arm as a board of directors, he's been under the cosh because what he said they've not liked. So it's a mixture. It's a smoke screen as well. And I don't think they've got to the bottom of where the club has been badly run. And Rodgers will leave because he's ended up with a custard pie in his face through what Desmond had said to him. And that's not good enough either, because he's almost invisible. I know he was at the game the other night, but there seems to be a lack there of the supporters getting value for money in my eyes. What money have they lost in bad buys? If you calculate them up and you calculate the 40 million that they've actually lost by not qualifying for the Champions League, you'll be nearing 75 million to 100 million by the time the season's done of bad funding, or not bad funding, bad spending and misfortune of not qualifying for the Champions League. Would it have been easy enough? I've also mentioned it a couple of times. Maeda wants away for the club. Excellent player, outstanding in Scotland last year. Never seems to really be keen to play for Celtic anymore. Kyogo, I've said it week in and week out, they would have qualified for Europe if they had thought the greed element again. We'll get 10 million for him. He's 32. We better punt him, right? He's prolific when it comes to scoring for Celtic Football Club, and he would have done the job that would have got them that 40 million in the bank. So why is it very strange that Rodgers comes in and two of Celtic's best players are out the door almost? Maida probably will maybe come alive now, and the other one's away. And I just think it's a whole mess, and one's blamed the other, right?
And taking that, what you had just said there, Dennis, that word or the two words, greed element, and there's no doubt at all that Celtic directors are looking over their shoulders early on. We're talking about sort of June, when obviously Russell Martin was the talk of him coming to Rangers, because they were ready to press buttons and they just didn't do it. They looked very quickly at him as the manager, what he was saying, the sort of buys that Rangers were bringing in, all being checked out by their agents behind the scenes and sort of saying all the what ifs, all the negatives. So that is then fed back to, as they say, the directors just wanted to just update us. And between them, I am sure they're saying, what is the point of going out and spending daft money when we think that what we've got here can get us through things? And the thing they did get wrong was obviously getting knocked out in the, if you like, the qualifying stages of the Champions League, and nobody could see that coming. So that was the infuriation part, where the fans were against them, and obviously Brendan Rodgers was against them as well. But he hasn't done himself any good as well, because even when you see him on TV, if there was anybody calmer than him, I would struggle to find him. He was getting interviewed after games, even when they were winning the games, and he was just, you know, the solace in him was so low key. You could sense, wait a minute, why is he acting like this? And just as you had said, Dennis, he did say, no, I'm not leaving this club. I've said I'll stick the 3 years that I'm there, and look what happens. And, you know, I'm also reading as well that he's going to be, I'm at the game on Sunday, and he's going to be at the game. They're saying definitely he's going to be at the game. Now, try and work that out.
Well, I would imagine he wouldn't be welcome by certain parts of the club. The ones that wants the directors out will be behind him, and the ones that are not wanting the directors out will be against him. So I think that would be very foolish, and I'm going to a game.
I would agree.
You know, there's an element where I've sat and looked at his interviews after matches when they've been total garbage, and I'm thinking to myself, why are you? I wouldn't use the word strongly smug, but he's sitting there knowing Rangers are shambolic. They're a disaster in every corner. They couldn't get any worse, and he's milking it for everything it's worth.
Yeah,
sitting there going, as if strolling the park. He's been found out with that. And he's maybe fortunate, because this new guy may turn the corner, but we'll come on to that later on. And the thing about it is, you can't be that blasé when you've signed players that are not fit for purpose. And Celtic have got half a dozen of them that are not fit for purpose at this moment in time. Yes, they've been winning, but they're against nobody. And they've got found out in Europe, and they've been exposed, and now in the Premier League. And that's the problem. He's got away with it long enough, Brendan Rodgers. His signings have been shocking. He can blame whoever he wants, but his name is behind him. And if you're going to rely on Scales to be your key man at centre half, when you spend a lot of money, was it 9 million on Trusty?
9 million. Yeah, that's
you bring
right.
him in, and he's not getting a game for Scales. And
then Vickers is injured now, maybe for 6 months as well. So I mean, he was a key player for them. And Dennis, look at the effect that must have against his defence. Yeah, just crazy.
If you look at Scales, his overall game, and you press that boy, he's not got what it needs at the top flight.
Yeah, the turning, sharpness.
Yeah, and I'll go back to it again, and I'm targeting him again, I suppose. Is the fact that he was farmed out to Aberdeen. He played and was instrumental in Aberdeen going out the Scottish Cup to a junior team, Darvel. And he was playing in that game, and he was diabolical. And the bottom line is, Celtic have now got him as a key part of a club that is worldwide renowned for success. When I say success, playing at the top flight and entertaining and being good, that is not good enough. And that's where I say Brendan Rodgers has a big flaw in his picking of teams and loyalty, which you can't have at that game. And I mean, you just need to look through the squad, and I'm not going to rattle my gums about who's fit for purpose and who's good enough, but they are a mile short of where they need to be. And that board of directors have backed him, no matter what you say, when he could easily have been out the door in the summer, quite easily, if he's been the man that's been picking the players. And I don't think for a minute he's not had an influence in the players that have been brought in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're right about Maida. I mean, the kind of player that he was. I mean, Postecoglou had 3 or 4 players, and generally they're all Japanese as well. That slickness,
Yeah.
sharpness, alertness, and finish. Look now, with Maida out, they ain't got it. It's like some of the forwards are playing just as you were talking there about the player a moment or two ago in defence, and he is a million miles off of being able to sharpen up the team with the staff that he's got there just now.
Yeah, it's very disappointing because they were only a couple of players at one point away from being good, and now they'll be looking over their shoulder, not just at Hearts, but potentially Rangers. They still have better players than Rangers,
totally, yeah,
man for man. I think that goes without saying, and you need to be blind to say otherwise. But they've got a hard job now, and I'm just hoping that Martin O'Neill's carer doesn't decide to chuck it, other than real bother.
And then obviously Callum McGregor, the captain, he's getting older, and he's the guy that's having to take it on his shoulders, having to be the front runner, the man that's, you know, on top of the players that are just getting a game for the first time, second time, etc. So all that is happening, and it's not going to ease off, particularly weekend, you know.
But if you look at Callum McGregor, he's a nice gentleman guy. I don't know if he's the type of guy, if I was playing in the park and the chips are down, I would want to be there and getting me to lift my game. Some of them need a shake up, right? And he's maybe too nice of a human being. Nice human beings don't win you matches. Seen it, done it. They don't, right? And that is what Celtic have got at this moment in time. They need maybe that. Scott Brown, to a degree, was a bit of an animal as well, and he would get a hold of a few of them,
he'd fire
shake them up.
Yes.
And I think at this moment in time, it's not got a leader. He'll do a role in the park, but he's not going to get guys out the trench and fighting right at the front line.
Old school.
I don't think he's got that in his makeup. He's a good footballer, and I like him, but I don't think that's part of his makeup. And I think also he was thrown in the deep end when Scott Brown left because they never really went and got somebody that was going to replace him. They thought he's ready-made, he'll do. That's okay when you're playing well, but when the chips are down like they are now, I think it's a different kettle of fish, and you see what people's makeup really is.
That's
I
right.
mean, I think McGregor's a player who leads by example more than anything else, as you say, who can take players by the scruff of the neck and drag them forward. You know, that's definitely it. And as I say, I think he obviously is already a Celtic legend, you know, and I think the fans appreciate what he has done for the football club. And as you say, Dennis, he took over when Scott Brown left the club. But Celtic now, again, they've gone back to the past, bringing in Martin O'Neill. The one thing that interested me that I found very intriguing was Dermot Desmond's statement. As you say, Dennis, you very rarely hear from him. He's an invisible man pretty much, which is how, to me, board of directors and chairman should be. You know, you shouldn't really hear from them. But his statement where he said that I think Brendan Rodgers had cultivated a toxic atmosphere, you know, and that was the kind of thing that I found very, very strange for anybody to come out and say one of their employees in a senior position had cultivated an atmosphere of had cultivated a toxic atmosphere, and they hadn't done anything about it. You know, they're obviously happy to continue when this was successful. But why had that not been dealt with prior to this, Bob?
Totally. And, you know, you're saying a toxic atmosphere. That doesn't just, you know, happen one week and you get rid of it the next. You've got 3, 4, 5 weeks to be able to measure it and say, wait a minute, the following week is getting worse. Well, what the heck's here? Why is he not challenged? But the other thing that I would say as well, that when you look, again, at an important person, and that's Schmeichel in goals. There's another one that's not on top of his game, and his alertness is poor. And were he to then be taken off the team, all of a sudden, you know, you're talking about so many inexperienced players, and they're not great players by any matter. I mean, so from the point of view of where have you got a player that can excite them, that can lead them forward? Because I think that the way you have got your Celtic captain, that he now has reached his pinnacle. I mean, he gave up Scotland. I interviewed him, and he said, since we're talking here, I'm going to announce I'm not playing for Scotland now. I've decided to so I can focus on Celtic. And, you know, from that point of view, Callum McGregor, I think, he's run out of steam. And he's looking at his aging stage to get players that are available for passing the ball, but can also rid him of having to run up and down the park as a defender, as a midfielder, and sometimes an attacker as well. And they just need an injury to him or some poor form, because he was crying, remember, in the cup final when they lost that game. Lost the treble against Aberdeen, and as I say, I'm sure in his head and heart just now is absolutely sickened, because once a Celtic, always a Celtic. That was definitely him, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100%. But the next thing, Dennis, that remains to be seen now is you hinted the fact that Martin O'Neill's not getting any younger. You know, so where did Celtic turn? You know, there's a lot of talk about who the next manager is going to be. Are they going to stick with Maloney? O'Neill obviously in a caretaker role, you know, but you're looking at a guy who's not been a success anywhere else. So where are Celtic going to look for the next manager?
Well, who's going to be looking for him? Is Dermot Desmond actually going to be attending games? Now, just going back to the point of the dummy being thrown out the pram with these board of directors, how much communication was being done with Desmond whenever all this was going on behind the scenes? Or has his troops not been happy with the way Rodgers has been dealing with it and just said, look, we're not happy with this? And he comes in and just blasts them right out of the water. These guys are not joined at the hip with each other, and this should have been thrashed out ages ago. And it looks to me as if they've waited until they've been beaten in games. Desmond's saying, what's happening here? He's in our case, so we're not happy with it. All right, you have a choice. You either beat it or you'll be thrown out the door. That's not how you run a business. But it seems to me as if the chief had just come in and things have got out of hand. And his statement for a man of his calibre should not have been done that way.
Agreed,
you know?
yeah.
So just on the fact of who comes in next, I know the boy McKenna for Ipswich has been mentioned. And I think yesterday when he was interviewed, you can forget that unless they throw money at him. And then they've got a problem because his heart will not be in it, because he'll not enjoy coming to Scotland. And that's my opinion. I just felt he was quite blunt about the way he felt about his own job, and there was no intention of him coming up here. I might have read it wrong, but I looked at his body language as well, and I thought, you're not interested in this job.
No
because of the way you've just said it. So I wouldn't even give him house room in interviewing him on the back of that statement. So where do you go from there? I'm trying to think who else was mentioned for it.
Well, Scott Brown's name was mentioned, didn't you?
I can forget that. That's never going to happen.
That's never happening.
The Welsh manager. Who's the Welsh manager? Bellamy. Craig Bellamy.
No.
I don't know. He has done exceptionally well. And I think sometimes you've got to look not too much further than that. What do? Do you get into that bowl again and you start dragging somebody out that's maybe like
is that what you're talking about?
There is that. And to be honest, how do you bring back what's already gone? Like the Japanese boys are away. I think if the two that we mentioned earlier had still been at the club, I would have bitten his arm off to come back, because he get the best out of them, right? And he had good contacts. Now he has to rekindle this with players that are not producing the goods. And remember, half of them he's not signed, and half of them he wouldn't have played anyway. And you talk about a couple in the back four. So you say to yourself, if he comes back in, what tools is he going to need to take this club forward? And remember, he can only play one way. Now you could say, well, that's good enough in Scotland. Brilliant. Is it good enough in Europe? Of course it is, because he won Tottenham the first cup in Europe.
Right, all these years, yeah.
So you say to yourself, you know, there's nothing wrong with bringing him back in my eyes. It's whether he gets a couple of bad results and the wheels come off. But I don't know how long Martin O'Neill will keep this role. I think
he only keep recycling for so long.
Yeah,
I think Celtic can only keep recycling for so long. You know, they recycled Brendan Rodgers. They've obviously recycled Martin O'Neill, and to a lesser extent, Sean Maloney. I think Celtic need to do what Rangers have done, but obviously I don't think Rangers have much of a choice, and look out elsewhere. Go back outside of Scotland. Go back outside. Get somebody new, somebody young, somebody hungry. I still like Michael Carrick. You know what I mean? I think he's probably a good option. You know, in terms of what he did at Middlesbrough, had them playing good football. I think what Middlesbrough are achieving just now has a lot of credit to what Michael Carrick put in place. I think that would be an interesting proposition for me, in terms of obviously as an ex-Celtic manager. For me, he'd be my favourite.
But if Martin O'Neill does happen to get a result on Sunday and the team play well, you know what happens. He'll be boosted. He'll be able to sing up his players. The directors will make comments. The supporters will be delighted. Rangers will be absolutely distraught, down a peg or two again, and all of a sudden that big gap is there. And you might see a situation where, do you think you can carry on to the end of the season? Let's just wait and see. Let's just wait and see what happens.
It's short-termism, Bob.
That's right.
That's the thing. Celtic need to be thinking long-term, the same way Rangers need to be thinking
And what
long-term.
players are available
This
is
2 years, 1 year appointment and things like that is no use. You need to be looking.
But to sign players just now, you can't do that. You're going to get free transfer players from other countries, maybe, but you can't get them into the team because of the transfer window obviously been closed. And then any managers that are available, they're available for certain reasons, not because they're the best managers at their team. It's because they haven't been maybe good enough, and they're very good at marketing themselves, a la Russell Martin.
Yeah. Indeed. But time only remains to be seen as to what will be happening. As I say, we'll take a look. Sorry, on you go, Dennis. On you go.
It'll be a feeding frenzy now for agents.
Yeah.
Yes.
You just need to look at this for agents' point of view. The amount of people you'll see actually thinking not just about a manager, but what players they can offload to both the old firm and the January window. And I think that's the only people that are going to win out of this.
And January's no far away now, isn't it? No, that's the other thing, isn't it?
There's a lot of movement out with managerial position.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed. A couple of months.
A lot will depend on the result on Sunday, to be perfectly honest.
I think so, yeah.
Because decisions will be made on the back of the outcome, especially with Celtic if it goes against them. And then again, if it goes against Rangers, you've got the same outcome. They'll be then saying, right, okay, the chairman was wrong where he said you've not seen the best of them and they're improving. He'll then agree, no, they're no fit for purpose. And both sides of the camp are almost in a level pegging with this change of management. There's no question of doubt. And also the fact of Celtic's result at the weekend.
Well, and it's interesting as well when you look at
so it was going to come a day.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. We looked at this in the last couple of weeks and we kept saying, look, Celtic have avoided then any sort of a criticism simply because of the state Rangers were in. But the time bomb came last week when Hearts, as I predicted, would beat them 3-1. And the result was the manager went. And that just showed you where the cracks were. And it's came to light. So Rangers can now say, oh, wait a minute, we won during the week, even although a penalty was saved by the goalkeeper to make it one each. They've managed to get out of jail, and they did look a bit better, I must admit. I thought they looked decent. They were slicker, they were working harder, and the passing was decent. And I thought, didn't watch the whole game, but the section I did watch, I thought, here, that's an improvement. Now, I still stand by my words. There is players at that club that are not good enough for Rangers, and they won't get them round the corner. But what the manager might be able to do is to get them to work harder. And I've always been a believer, what you lack in talent, you make up for in effort. And if you do that, you sometimes can put your opposition under real pressure. If you get a few breaks, you can snatch results. And I've always believed that because 9 out of 10 teams that I've managed, they did lack the quality of the opposition. But if you are fitter and you work harder, the result is you'll get something out of the game. That's what Rangers have not been doing. Celtic have just been laid back. I think there's an element there where it's been too easy almost. Until they get into Europe. And
I think you mentioned that word element, and there's an element in Martin O'Neill as well. It's 71, 72, whatever he is. He's still a good talker. He's a fit-looking man. He knows the game back to front. Obviously, he's been doing all the podcasts and that for the last 20-odd years, so he can talk a game. I am sure he's still got that verve in him that should they do beat Rangers, things will calm down at Parkhead and he'll be pacing out to the end of the season. I don't see Celtic jumping off it. The fans will be happy with beating Rangers at that. And remember, Danny Rowe is a young guy, and it'll be interesting to see how he reacts. Obviously, 2 games, 2 victories, but this is a bit that counts, regardless of Celtic being a poor team. It's Celtic, and that's where the fans will take their lift if he was able to win. And it's going to be so important. But I would not rule out this time when we may be talking again in April that they're in the cup final again, and it's the same managers.
Well, I do believe that Sunday's game will say a lot for not so how the clubs have been run, but for what the makeup and the character of the players are. Because there's no question of doubt, Martin O'Neill will get a good bit out of the players that's not been happening, right? And the new manager at Rangers, I think, he's got a bit about him, I think. But I still question the fact is, can he do a Paul Daniels? Because the quality of the players are very, very poor. And I've not seen anything from any of them that you would say would take Rangers to the next level or back to the level they should be at. So there is an element of saying Celtic should win this on Sunday. But if the new manager at Rangers can actually get something out of the players, then you might find they could catch Celtic. And it'll be an interesting game. I don't think it'll be the best game in the world. But if both teams have a go at it, then it could be attractive enough to say, by the way, that was decent enough.
It's a strange one, isn't it? Yeah.
They need some fire in their bellies. That's the problem, Bob. That both teams have really got to be up for this. It's no a stroll in the park. There's people going out in these lousy conditions that we've got now, digging holes, and they're working hard hours to go and watch these teams. And the rubbish they're being dished up is atrocious. And I think the board of directors should be standing up and making sure that what they put in the park for the supporters is of value for money. And to be honest, the last year has been terrible. And it's about time they actually done something about it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, I mean, I certainly think Danny Rowe, as you say, Dennis, has got a bit about him. He's changed the system at Ibrox already. He's trying something there. He's going 3 at the back. To me, it certainly worked against Hibs. They look much more solid against Hibs. Yeah. The one thing I will say is, and both you guys will agree, particularly you, Dennis, you need to build for the back, and that to me is what Roll has started to do. Up front, Rangers offered very little against Hibs. I don't think they had a shot from inside the Hibs box. So they didn't offer much. But I think Sunday's a different animal altogether, and I think it's Roll's first time in an Old Firm game, and I think that could be the difference between two sides. Martin O'Neill's been there, done it, said it, bought how many T-shirts, goodness knows, So that's the difference, I think, in Sunday. And I think that will be the difference. Ultimately, I think Celtic will get the result on Sunday, just purely and simply because it's Roll's first Old Firm game. But I think Danny Rowe has shown in his couple of weeks that he's, as you say, he's got something about him. I think he could actually prove to be a decent manager for Rangers here.
Well, you've got to give the guy a chance. I mean,
certainly.
There's no way you could actually say he'll be a hit or a miss at this moment in time because of what the players he's got there to work with. And I would never judge him now until Christmas because by that time he'll have found out. But I'll tell you what, I noticed it last week because you actually you're only allowed 5 substitutes. Because I said last week, he at least seen the flaws in the team and he took them off. Yeah. And you said, well, he's only allowed 5.
To do it, that's right.
That's it. He's only allowed 5, yeah.
But he took the ones off that I'm sitting there going, he's not doing a gig for him. He's not doing it. And he identified that and they come off. So that's a good sign, right? And as I keep saying, he's got to get them to work for him because they are limited in talent. And if he can do that, he might be able to turn the corner. Come Christmas, you've seen a different approach and the board will be wholly behind him and so will the supporters. And that's what's needed. You need a manager that's not fighting a war with the supporters week in and week out. As much as you could say Russell Martin was this or that or anything else, that guy was up against it every week. On the park, off the park. That is not a good environment to be working in when you probably was trying his best, but it was never good enough. And it was never good enough when he left Southampton for Rangers to employ him. And that's a mistake that Rangers have made. And that's what Celtic are going to be very careful of. They don't end up with the same scenario, employing the wrong person.
Totally.
I think at this moment in time, they're in safer hands, Celtic, by bringing in Martin O'Neill. I think that's a safer pair of hands at this moment in time.
A quick settlement,
100%.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on Sunday then? Who's going to win on Sunday? Let's get that one out the road and have a look at St.
Well, I'll say that I still think Celtic will do it. I think that they've got more players there that understand Scottish football than in cup finals particularly than what Rangers have got. I think that they're more cohesive. I think that they've just got that extra drive in them, but their finishing has been poor, their energy has been poor, their pace up front has been poor as well. But I still think that, if Rangers start the game, I mean, against Hibs, they started it okay, and then Hibs took over. And then in the second half, just as you'd said, Dennis, the lack of shooting, it was right down low. I think they'd one shot in 17 minutes, something like that. So from the point of view of, I think that Celtic might just do it. And the driver obviously is Martin O'Neill there, albeit at 70 odd years of age. He'll not be jumping out there. It'll be his sidekick, the assistant manager, Sean Maloney, that'll be doing it. So I think that Rangers were to win. Great result for them. That is a turning point. In Scotland, we're talking about, no anywhere else. But I still think Celtic have got the edge.
Dennis?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at it and trying to think, how would you be if you score the first goal in this game? If Rangers score it, will it get Celtic's backs up and they'll come back and they'll get a result? Or does that make Rangers go on and progress and get other goals? There's lots of ways that these players' minds will work when they're out in the pitch. And that momentum, we getting that first goal, I think will mean everything. And I think if Celtic get the first goal, I think they could go on and win the game 3 or 4-1. Yeah. As much as that, because I think the talent and the gap is high enough that if Martin O'Neill gets his team to play properly, then that's it. My only failing with that prediction is what Celtic are left with the people he's got at the back. The midfield need to produce, and the boy Kenny up needs to be having the shooting boots on. My fear is, which I don't think is a great fear if you're actually the player yourself, is seeing that Rangers forward line coming at you because of nothing in real terms of being a major threat. But Celtic are quite poor in that department. So if I'm a Rangers forward, I'm going to get into that game quite confident and thinking I could score maybe 1 or 2 here. But just to finish on my prediction, I'll say 3-1 to Celtic.
Yeah.
But it could go anyway.
Either way. Yeah.
Either way, honestly. And that's because of the state the two clubs are in.
Yeah, it's weakness against weakness, It's a pure Celtic forward line.
Right.
That's it. But we can only see. But the other game is probably more intriguing, to be honest. I think when you look tomorrow night, St Mirren, Bob, and Motherwell face off at 5:30 tomorrow night at Hampden. I don't imagine it'll be a sellout that game.
No.
Still be a big crowd there.
7,000 tickets. That's all it's been sold for St Mirren fans. 9,000 tickets, something like that. So it's not going to be. It's not going to be a big sale, But that is a sold out stadium tomorrow night. But it doesn't detract from the fact that St Mirren and Motherwell facing off in a semi-final. Stephen Robinson coming up against his old side. He does it regularly anyway. But I just. It's a game that's definitely intriguing, for different reasons. Both sides that are forming the Premier League is kind of up and down. Neither side getting any consistency at all. Motherwell will probably play the better football, to my mind, But that should be a good one as well, Dennis.
I think it'll be a great game. I think it's got as much to offer as the Old Firm match, without any question of a doubt. I think both of them at this moment in time are a bit hot and cold, but St Mirren probably not as consistent as they were. In the last 4 games, they've lost 3 and drawn 1. You look at Motherwell, picked up, they've dropped a couple of games, then a couple of victories. So between the two of them, I don't think there's much there. Points-wise, you're looking at St Mirren sitting in 10 points and Motherwell in 14. It's no massive, but it is early days in the season. But from all accounts, Motherwell seem to be playing good, attractive football, and St Mirren are never negative either. So for me, I would think that's going to be as good a tie as the Old Firm match. I actually think Motherwell will edge it. But I'll tell you what, I don't think there'll be much in that game. I don't think between the two teams. I can't see somebody winning 3-0 or something like that. I don't think the gulf is between either team that you're going to see somebody winning it outright like that. It could even go to penalties.
their manager, John Askew, obviously, just as you had said there, the last 2 games they have won. But what's it, man? They can still play poor, but they can still put teams under so much pressure. Why?
Yes.
Because it's the way they train, the fitness they've got, the way they can break, etc., etc. But it's the finishing bit that's always been their big problem, and where things are. Stevie Robertson, I was speaking to him during the week there at Hearts game. He was kept away, and he says, "I've got this confidence, Bob. I've got this confidence. I think that we are going to be able to do it. We're sharp." Also, the players I know I hear them talking about, how poor some of the old firm teams are. So I look forward to getting into the final. He says, "I'm confident we've got the fitness," but obviously, it was before the game. It's how we play against Hearts as well. The confidence. Can we select the players that have produced? Because I'm not going back to players that maybe played two games ago. Right, they're getting into the side. I'll be picking the players that played good against Hearts, after all, league leaders. And he said, if I can get players performing, they'll walk into the side. Meaning, if there's no injuries in their side, it'll be the same side, because against Hearts, they did very well indeed. And as you know, the offside goals, one apiece, they're a VAR. They were getting pulled up for action. So there's 2 VAR. A goal, no, it's not, and then VAR again. So I think they've just got that wee bit more pace, and their build-up's much quicker. They can play with 1 man up front and still create. Whereas if you look at Motherwell, they tend to go up and, 3 players at a time, 4 players at a time, and they just lack that wee bit of pace. Albeit they've got that player that scored 9 goals for them, Mazzaluki, I think his name is. But 9, geez, some teams this season haven't scored 9, but he scored 9 for that side. So he obviously is going to be a big challenge for them, Dennis.
Well, Motherwell scored 16 just when you're talking about the goals, and obviously maybe hinting slightly that St Mirren were up for it in the scoring department. They've only scored 8 goals in the league.
That's right.
And Motherwell have doubled that, 16. And Motherwell was scoring twice against Dundee United, I think, is a great result as well.
Agreed,
Because
yes.
Dundee United, you would tip to be above either of the 2 teams this year. So when you look at it, Motherwell's just got that goal scoring edge because they've got somebody that can finish. And that could well, Bob, be the difference between the 2 teams.
Totally. Yes.
There's very little in other departments you could
And
question.
they're not making chances either, Dennis. It's not even a case of how many goals they get. It's just chances. It's a 1 man taking on 3, but what that 1 man has got is great speed, but nobody's there to finish, and that is the killer.
And that could be the telling factor. Who can take the chances? And Motherwell just seem to have an edge if you look at the league stats. So, good game to look forward to. I'm certainly interested in that.
Game. Yeah, Motherwell, to me, just offers slightly more. I think the result the other night against Dundee United was telling.
Oh, totally.
St Mirren's performance against Hearts was decent. Was the led 2-1 at one point. And Hearts pegged them back, but I just have a fancy for Motherwell in this one as well. So it'd be interesting to see. But as I say, it does promise to be a couple of decent games. I think the Old Firm game certainly should be better than the last one. It can't be any worse, for sure. But and as I say, the other one there, it's just unfortunate that you're probably only going to have a 20,000 crowd there at Hampden or so. That's it.
That's
so it's one of these things. But Bob, you might
said that's more than their average. That's more than their average crowd. So I wouldn't get carried away with the fact that there'll be no atmosphere. I've been to Hampden when there's 500 at it.
Yeah,
I can assure you.
We all have been.
That's right.
We all have been.
Still an atmosphere, but it should be a good game.
Yeah, looking forward to both games this weekend, and next week we'll obviously give you a look back on the fixtures. But we have teased this tonight, in terms of what I posted. It's the VAR controversy at the weekend that probably no one is talking about. I was at the game, as I say, between Falkirk and Dundee on Saturday afternoon. First half left a hell of a lot to be desired, but there was a controversial VAR denial towards the end of the first half. It looked very difficult where I was to tell in the stand, but it was referred to VAR as a simulation. And ultimately Dundee were denied a penalty where they could have gone on and taken a 2-0 lead. They were obviously 1-0 up at the point where Kyril Wilson who'd already been booked. It sort of appeared to bring down Ethan Hamilton in the box. Stills, etc., clearly show there was contact between both players, but the VAR referral denied the penalty. I think Dundee were raging, rightly so, because I say they were 1-0 up and would probably have been facing 10 men, possibly 2-0 up had the penalty gone in. I know the two of you have struggled to find the highlights of it, but once again, Bob, VAR appears to be making a mockery of what's happening on the park.
Well, what I would say right away in that one, and again, over the years you bump into them and so on and so forth, but the SFA referees gaffer we all know is Willie Colum. He has come out and apologised to Dundee and said, honestly, we made a mistake. Now, I think 2 or 3 months ago he'd done that again, nothing to do with him personally, but to come out and say that. So that answers your question. It was a mistake on that, Cammy. But there's no doubt at all. The bit that's getting me about VAR, and you're wondering how players can run on, beat a player, score a goal, run away, and what happens in the right-hand side if you've got peripheral vision? You see that linesman's flag going up, as opposed to it happening when he's got the ball and he's in advance of running. But they'll wait to right at the end, which absolutely, takes the wind away from everyone, and they're believing it is a goal. Now you're going to have to count to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nothing's happened. Good, it is a goal. And that's it. You've got indecisive feelings about you. I had that during the week there when it was something against Hearts, and as I say, there was 2 goals, and up came the referee with a whistle to blow down to the centre spot, and then all of a sudden you saw this. And I'm saying, I don't believe it. He's getting shouted at. And then what happened was he had to go across and look, obviously, in the VAR set up to see what happens and then come back. But to be able to run in and score a goal, tuck it away, players celebrate, and then they're running down into their own half to start, getting into after the goal is scored, and then it changes. It's taking something away, definitely.
Yeah. Dennis, the announcement in the stadium on Saturday was they were checking for simulation, obviously against the Dundee player, potentially. I think he's obviously saying there's been contact or whatever else, I've been brought down. And as I say, it says simulation, penalty check simulation is what the kind of announcement along the lines was, which to me, how you can get a penalty for simulation is beyond me. But both players went down heavily after the challenge. It almost appeared to where I was from my angle that it had been a collision of 2 players, within the box, both with raised feet. But when you see the stills, when you see the video replay, it does appear quite clearly. It does appear clearly, but there is contact between both players. Whether you're thinking that it's a penalty kick or not, the fact that the penalty kick decision didn't appear to have been reviewed by VAR is what's left a lot of Dundee fans. And listen,
Absolutely.
we've had more Dundee fans reaching out to us via all sorts of medium, TikTok, text message, etc., asking us to talk about this tonight, and it is right. It does appear Dundee fans are adamant that there is some kind of West Coast central bias against their football club. I know we've heard it all before, but to say why the decision, Dennis, wasn't reviewed, and I know you're a bit indecisive as to whether or not it is a penalty. After your 5 minutes, which is still quicker than what VAR takes, to make a decision. But I know you were a bit indecisive, Dennis, as to whether or not it was a penalty kick.
I've only seen it twice, right? A referee only sees it once. So I've had double what he's seen. And because that's where we were a wee bit delayed coming on. The problem was I couldn't find it to get into my highlights. My initial thought was the foot's up high in the penalty box. It was a penalty because he caught him on his thigh, right?
Yeah.
But the second time I looked at it, I thought his toe poked the ball away in the box and it's caught him off balance. And as the player comes through, the ball's away from him that forward coming in wasn't going to get the ball on his second touch. And he's managed to go down, right? Now, on the fact of him going down, would he have actually got to the ball? I don't think so, because I get the feeling he was losing his balance, right? And what helped him on his way was the tackle coming in and top
About the thigh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, olden days, we're not worrying about VAR. That's a penalty, no matter where you look at it. The tackle's been brutal, and you don't have time as a normal human being to assess, was he losing control? Was he? I had the luxury of having that twice at slow motion. Now, you make a judgment as a referee or a linesman, you will find that you make errors, and you find you make mistakes. There is no question or doubt about that. But I think it's still better when you consider what Bob's talking about is, and I'm totally with it as well, because I rant about this regular. VAR is ruining a good sport. It's ruining good goals, and it's disrupting the whole match, because what you're finding, and I keep repeating this, it's not football people that are controlling the visual part that they are seeing. They are dissecting it. They've got a rule book, and they're going through it, and they're going through it, and they're going through it. It's not a matter of common sense. It's a matter of statement. If he's offside, he's offside, right? But there's another way of looking at it and thinking, do they really know what's intentional as a tackle, what's accidental? Is it a collision of two people coming together? It is a physical sport. If you want to say football is now barred, you can't make physical contact, then bin it, because I'll stop watching it. It's bad enough as it is with normal referees, with tackles not coming through the back and stuff like that. Totally against that. I lived my life with my Achilles tendon getting kicked every Saturday. That's a good thing for the game, where they can't come through the back end. But we've now gone to an extreme that is nitpicking about everything in the game. And for me, VAR, and we were talking about this either last week or the week before, there is room for VAR, but not overkill. And it's overkill now that, to me, the money I would spend is getting the referees full time and making sure that they are more equipped to understand the game and make decisions that they think is right. And I'll put up with that if they have been employed as full-time people, right? Where they can totally dedicate every day, even go to training grounds with the senior clubs. They can understand, they can watch players, they can spend their whole week living and eating football. And they will understand more about what is somebody cheating, somebody really trying their best to get out a tackle. They will understand the game better. Unfortunately, we don't have that, so much so that referees are bailing out now and making decisions, and they're relying on VAR. Yeah. That's not where it was meant to be.
Can I just say something as well as a follow? Yeah, well, as a follow through to what you're saying, Dennis, and I was speaking to Julie Fleeton, who's down at Arsenal. She was obviously the Scottish women's top scorer, Arsenal's top scorer. And what she was saying is, Bob, by a mile, the difference that in the English Premiership. And what is it? You get that decision, and then you hear the referee saying, yes, we have decided that this is a goal, and the reason for the goal, what? So you are now getting at least an explanation. I don't know, gents, if you've picked that up, but that's what happens now at the end of the games in the Premiership. Does that make a difference? What it does, it appease the fans at that time, and better for the press, because at least they are getting their sort of read on it. Whether the press agree with it or not, that's them got a story for the next day to take them on or whatever. But at least the fans, and it's amazing because I said, so does that seem to settle them? She says, 100%, because at least they're hearing something rather than the what if situation, which kills you, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, that's what's happening in the World Club Championships.
We're only taking a leaf out of rugby's book. We're always behind in some sports. And rugby have been doing this and getting it right. We seem to have made a total mishmash yet of thinking we can employ the same system as rugby, but we're shambolic about it. And the thing is, because we've went overkill, the referees have got to stand up and be counted. It's a terrible job they've got, right? But I'd rather they were making honest errors than the supporters 100%. Being in the stand in the terrace and totally up, elated, and then deflated.
And then technology,
handle that now. It's ruined the whole game.
Agreed.
That you're up there on the high, and some machine has looked at it and gone, "How can we cancel that goal out?" It's almost like that. Totally. Listen, let the referees go on with it. It wasn't perfect, let's use VAR to a degree of simple things that it's not going to get wrong, and let's the referee be in a position that they're loving the game because they've just seen a great goal. They're not going, oh, wait a minute, what can you do to actually chop that goal off? Because I've got 50,000 people here elated. We want to send them home absolutely feeling rubbish. Yes. It's almost like that.
Yes.
It's there for the punter that is actually paid to get into the match to enjoy the game, and they're killing it. The VAR is killing it.
Yeah.
And the sooner we actually kick it back, get the referees full time, then we will see a change. And until we do that, my own opinion is their game's going to go down the toilet, because everybody now is sitting waiting on a VAR decision rather than the quality of the game. The product's poor enough. Why make it worse?
Sure.
Indeed. Chipping the ball, that's all you need to prove it's crossed the goal line. Maybe offsides, take everything else away. And the one thing that everybody forgets is the laws of the game, in the opinion of the referee. It still states that, as far as I'm aware. Nowhere does it turn around and say, in the opinion of some guy sitting watching it on a screen somewhere, miles
for
away.
Assaults, I think for tackles off the ball, or maybe the referee's watching the game, say in the last third, and a defender for the other team elbows somebody in the face, there's visual there that you can be pulled up and say, right, you're going off the park. I think you should have that watchful eye. But you just draw guidelines. It's not going to disrupt the actual performance.
Don't get overly involved. Yeah.
No.
I mean, my own sport, the sport, obviously, you guys know I probably enjoy watching more than anything, in terms of American football. They're at a situation now where you've got guys in New York who sit and watch the games, and they then overrule what happens on the park. That spoils the game altogether. That's just nonsense, and we certainly don't want to be getting to that in soccer, and obviously it's football. That's something we don't want to be getting to. But anyway, that's us for tonight. We've come in well under an hour, so well done to us. I think we've discussed obviously the League Cup semi-finals, the VAR controversy, and the new Celtic manager, and their hunt for appointing one. We could look ahead to the fixtures, but hey, listen, if you're going to a game this weekend, you know what games you're going to. So get out there and enjoy it. The weather's going to be a wee bit milder than what it was yesterday, so get out to a game. All that remains to be said is, Bob, enjoy your two games of football over the weekend. I'm pretty sure being there in the stadium, you're going to enjoy both games.
Absolutely, looking forward to it, and it's all about car parking. Never mind the result, car parking.
Oh, listen, get a bus. You've got a pass for one.
That's it.
Dennis, have a cracking weekend, mate, whatever you're up to.
You too, mate.
You're obviously not here next week. You're not here next week.
No. So people get the luxury. Yeah.
We will be joined by Tom House and Steve Hitchen to discuss and look ahead. And
another edition. We'll have Ian Harrison, who's going to give us
as well,
and Cove Rangers slant on things. So we've got an English and Scottish divide, and the luck you've not got me there sitting ranting all afternoon.
That's it, no bother. We'll be looking ahead next weekend to the Man United Spurs game that's coming up as well. So as I say, get along to the game. Go ahead, subscribe to the podcast if you've enjoyed it. If you haven't, don't bother telling your pals. But if you've enjoyed what you've heard tonight, go ahead, subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're on all good podcasting platforms, because after all, everything is always happening on the pitch. Good night.